Sometimes they would like to ignore us, but I think they're going to hear from us loud and clear. The quotation which I use a lot, and that is, an idea whose time has come can't be stopped by any army. Ideas are powerful. They have consequences. Bad ideas have bad consequences. We put up with a lot of bad ideas, and the 20th century was a bad century because there was a lot of fighting and killing needlessly. We need a new century where we can talk more about peace and prosperity and the rule of law. That's what we need to talk about. So many are coming to this conclusion that these ideas are alive and well on the college campuses, but there's a lot of people who come now, and even the media is recognizing it's not only those teenagers and young college kids, it's a lot of people coming together now. A lot of people worry about it because if they take a vote and as they say, well, 51%, we don't have 51% to pursue these beliefs. The founders knew this and they understood it, and it's estimated that maybe 7 or 8% of the people really believed and understood what the revolution was all about and what freedom was all about. But today our number is even much better than that, and the numbers are growing. But as Benjamin Franklin said, Franklin said, that what you need is an irate, tireless minority spreading brush fires of freedom in the minds of men. That's what we need. So the good ideas are becoming pervasive. They've been around now for 30 years or so. I get a lot of credit, which I think is excessive because many more individuals have done so much hard work in the intellectual community. And it has to happen. Just as Keynesianism was an intellectual revolution and brought us havoc for 100 years, but even in the 20s and early 30s, the persistence was, yes, we still believed in free enterprise and the gold standard and all this, but behind the scenes, the intellectual community was saying, no, it's fascism and communism and socialism and interventionism and welfarism and inflationism and central banks, and they won the day. But they're losing now because their system is obviously failing and the people know it. But we do need to change our policies. We need to change the spending. I'm for cutting a lot of spending, as I said. But you know, even under those conditions, I still have priorities. If we work our way out of it, we could have priorities and try to take care of those who have been taught to be so dependent. You don't need to start on food stamps. I think you should start on all the foreign spending and cut that first. There's still a lot of people who think that we have this absolute necessity to go about the world spreading our goodness. They call it spreading our exceptionalism. And this has been going on since Woodrow Wilson, make the world safe for democracy. Some people have named this neo-Jacobinism, this idea that we can force people to be good. Well, I'll tell you what, we have been an exceptional nation. We at one time understood property rights and monetary policy and contract rights, limited government, and yet today we have lost that. But if you are an exceptional nation, if we are to be an exceptional nation, people will want to emulate us. They'll want to copy us. You can't go overseas and tell them, do this, or if you do it, we'll give you money. If you don't do it, we'll bomb you. That's not the way to change the world. So often the argument is used against legalizing freedom of choice in society. When people hurt each other and damage each other, obviously that's the purpose of government, to take care of those problems. But when people spend their money in a way that you don't approve, or have a lifestyle that you don't approve of, and you say the government has to come in and change it, then all of a sudden, what we do is we just get into more and more trouble. And people will say, well, I can't allow people to spend their money. They might not do it wisely. I can't allow them to do this. They might become a gambler, and it'll be all my fault because I allowed them to do this. But by legalizing something and legalizing freedom of choice, you don't endorse it. Because people use their religion in a way you don't want to. You don't endorse their religion. So I think probably the most important thing for me personally is thinking about striving for excellence and virtue and dealing with spiritual life. And that should be in the business of government. And under those conditions, though, government should just stay out of it. Now,
everybody at the bottom is saying,
if we can accept that for our spiritual life and our intellectual life, why is it that we automatically say we need the FDA to tell us everything we ever do about putting what we put into our own bodies? I've talked for a long time about the war on drugs. I think the war on drugs has been a total failure. I think drugs are horrible. I think they're a mess, but I also know that drug addiction of prescription drugs is a lot worse than illegal drugs. I also know that addiction should be a crime, and we shouldn't throw people in prison that didn't commit a violent crime and turn them into violent criminals. Our country tried prohibition back when they passed the 18th Amendment, and just think of the difference in that period of time. They actually amended the Constitution to change this and give the power to the government. Today, the government just doesn't never think about it. But that was a total failure, so the people woke up and said we had to repeal the prohibition. And today, though, I think we're making great progress. When you see Pat Robertson coming out and saying, hey, let's look at this more carefully. And he, like I, was very concerned about saying drugs are dangerous, but there's a lot of danger. Who's responsible for protecting you against yourself? When the government thinks they can do that, they'll regulate every single thing you do. They'll tell you how much salt you can put on your food, how much exercise you have to get. But not only doesn't it work, it costs a lot of money, but it's also one of the excuses for the violation of our civil liberties. And guess what? Guess who some of the organized efforts are against the change in the drug laws? Alcohol companies. They don't want people using something in place of alcohol. Also the drug companies. What if you started using something that you could grow in your backyard and you didn't buy all those expensive drugs? The issue for me is not the drugs. The issue for me is liberty and who makes the decision. Because one thing leads to another. Today, if you decided you want to drink raw milk, you might be prohibited by the federal government. Now, just because there's such a poor understanding on the war on drugs, there was a product, a commercial product that we had for years. The founders grew it in their backyards and in their fields. And we used it during World War II. But because of the war on drugs, they prohibit this country from growing hemp. Now the people say, one of their excuses is, well, it looks like marijuana. They say they better not do it. I say, yeah, but if somebody wanted to get high on hemp, they'd have to smoke a cigar as big as a phone pole. But once again, it's back to our confidence. Who's going to make up our minds? But all this freedom doesn't work, though, unless we do one thing. We have to assume responsibility for ourselves. If we assume... If we assume, just like in economics, the government's always the lender of last resort and they bail out the big guys, if the government is always the protector of last resort, if you do something that makes no sense and you do harm to yourself, you shouldn't be able to come and coerce your neighbor to take care of you. So freedom does imply responsibility. John Adams argued the case that if we became a less moral society, an immoral society cannot have liberty because they abuse it. And in many ways, I think this is what's been happening to us. I think a lot about the abortion issue and the problems that we've had there. Well, the laws which, abortions were done in the 60s illegally. So the law wasn't changed. What happened is the attitude was changed and then the laws were changed. So the laws do reflect the people. So many of our problems is a reflection of, our moral behavior. And so there's a lot of responsibility on us as individuals. And assuming this responsibility is crucial. But to assume that the government is